Performance advertisers who optimize for catalog sales. You already know November is going to be rough, but in this episode of the Paid Traffic Forecast, we're going to dig through exactly what the forecast shows, the hot spots and cold spots your media buying team needs to pay attention to, what the projection models say your P&L could look like depending on what you focus on, and the 3 things you can do to maximize your results despite the rising costs. More on that right after this. Hey there, and welcome to the November 2025 Paid Traffic Forecast for catalog sales advertisers. My name is John Belcher. I'm the founder here at Decyphered. That's Ross Pietersen, the head of media buying. And we're excited to show you what's around the corner for your campaigns in the month of November. So quick overview of what we do here at Decyphered. We help our clients understand and win at the scaling game. It's about focusing on the things that matter to help them unlock their next level of scale. And the key to long-term success with this game is understanding your cost environment. It has a huge impact on your results. And that's why we made this forecast. In this episode, we're going to cover 4 things. The first one is the November outlook, what the last 5 years tells us is likely in store for you as a catalog sales advertiser. Then Ross is going to go through the hot spots and cold spots, the dates you need to pay attention to, and the do's and don'ts from a media buying perspective. Then I'm going to go through the projection models, what your numbers could look like depending on what you focus on. And then finally, the cost environment playbook. I always try to give you 3 actions you can take to maximize your results and or prepare for the future. So let's talk about the November outlook. I want to explain really quickly how this forecast was created. My job is to work with clients to determine projections for their P&L. And I'm a data person, so I always want to make sure that my projections are grounded in reality. So I went and looked at the 5-year historicals on Meta, analyzing hundreds of millions of dollars of spend with CPM trends for the 4 major conversion types. And I developed a projection model. I tested it, and I found that we could project within about 5% of actuals for clients spending $1 million a month or more in ad spend. What's important for you to understand is these percentages apply across platforms. So while we're using Meta as our source of truth, we see very similar behavior across Google, native, and as AppLovin starts to get more advertisers, it's applying more and more. What's important for you to understand, this is a forecast and not a prophecy. History repeats itself pretty consistently with advertising, but things change on an annual basis. So our goal is to show you what's ahead, what's likely, but obviously things can change. What I want to make sure is really clear is people call me Johnny Raincloud because I always plan for the worst and hope for the best. What I'm looking at here is month over month changes. So we're going to be looking at what we can expect month over month from November compared to October. And I developed 3 models, a worst case, median case, and best case. I'm going to focus on the worst case. I want to tell you, if you prepare for the worst, your only surprise can be overperforming. And there's only been one time in the last 2 years that we have been worse than the worst case, and it was only by 1%. So really small amount. This will help you understand, okay, this is probably the worst that things are going to happen, and I'll be able to perform and hopefully overperform if things go better than that. So worst case scenario, month over month change for catalog sales advertisers between October and November is you are expecting your cost per sale to increase by 35%, which is a ton. But when we look at this, this is kind of a macro view. This is what you can go through and set your P&L on, and I'll go through and talk about this in the projections piece later. But this information is not useful for media buyers. Macro changes are valuable for that P&L planning, but when navigating the day-to-day, it's not very useful. You need to know the micro changes. And so that's when Ross came through and put together this level of the forecast where we can look on a day-by-day basis to understand how things are going to change, the dates that are important, and the things that we should do and not do during these periods. So Ross, let's transition to hot spots and cold spots. I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. So just before we start, let's quickly, go over like a hot and a cold spot and how we turn them. A hot spot is a rapid cost spike, and a cold spot is a rapid cost drop. So we're going to look at those specific dates, but both of these just create volatility, and they need to be managed, not fixed. So let's go and have a look at the 4 dates that we've set out here. We've got for 31st of October. So this was an early one, just to give people early warnings on how we look in the beginning of the month. One on the 9th, on the 20th, and then on the 30th. This is a pretty crazy heat map with loads of colors. Been doing this for a couple of months now, but this is the most colors we've seen. Now, if you're a media buyer, this is, and you're in the seat, this is kind of what you're going to be experiencing through the month. So the 4 dates we've got, the first being a cold spot. So that's a drastic cost decrease, which we're going to experience from that real beginning part of November. And then as we go through till about the 10th, everything's okay. But from the 9th, you're going to have your big first hotspot. You're going to have a drastic change in cost, and all of a sudden things are going to change. And you haven't got into the worst of it. We get to the 20th, and that's where we all know Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Thanksgiving, all of that starts to happen. And that's when we hit the peak of the year. This is really the most expensive time of the year. And when that ends on the 30th of November, we head down into December into a cold spot. Now, all this is good and well, but I think let's take you through what this feels like. If you're driving and you're in the seat as a media buyer, what a cold spot will feel like. Early signals of hotspots and cold spots are budget utilization. So what you're going to see is an overspend. And then if you're running anything with no cost control, so that's no bid caps, no target ROAS, anything like that, there's going to be some serious instability. But those also, if you have cost controls in place, you're going to pretty much experience the same thing. I think to illustrate this, let's look at a real world example, John. So this is a snapshot of one of my sheets that I have for an account that we're running. And essentially, this is a breakdown of what our budget was set at and what was actually spent. And you can see here the budgets are set at, say, $320, and we spent $417. So that's 131% usage of the budget. So what that means is I set a budget, and let's round it off. I'm using $100, and we've gone and spent $140. So that's significant overspend. And you can see that across the board. This is across multiple campaigns, and there's some significant overspend. So that's what a real life example looks like as a cold spot. Let's quickly have a look at the do's and don'ts of that. Now, remember, we've got two, one on the 31st, right in the beginning and right on the end. The risks we're trying to avoid here is extending a recovery period and ruining the entire account's performance. So what we do want to do, and this is for all advertisers, whether you use cost controls or not, is monitor your overspend. So keep an eye on your budget utilization, like you saw in our graph spreadsheet. Communicate with your team if you're an internal team. If you've got clients and you're running ads for them, guys, we're in for some choppy water. The other thing you don't want to be doing in the cold spot is making drastic budget changes. Don't be doing anything. You need to ride this out. The other thing is, don't rescale your old performance too quickly. So if you're going to rebuild, that's cool, but wait for things to settle down, and then you can start building, but start building up slowly. Don't get up to those levels that you were at before that point. Got to wait for the chops to settle. And the last thing is, if you've got cost controls in place, changing your bids are a really bad idea in this transition phase. You need to ride it out, surf out the wave, let it settle, and then carry on. Let's take a look.
Just really quickly, Ross, I wanted to chime in here. Once again, these do's and don'ts are based off all of the mistakes that we have made, right? So Ross has monitoring in place. We communicate these things with our clients. I'm probably the reason that we felt bad things during hot spots and cold spots, because I'm the one that's trying to drive to certain performance levels for our clients. And the one that's really important for us to call out, I have done this multiple times and asked Ross, hey, we just came out of this hot spot. We're no longer choked. Can we go restart those target CPA campaigns on Google Demand Gen that got wiped out? But I want to start them at that same budget level that they died at. So if we were spending $3,000 a day, let's just go restart them at $3,000 a day. And every time we do that, it performs horrifically. And so what Ross, we've gotten to that stage where we say, hey, we're going to be able to restart these campaigns that dropped off, but we have to start them at our initial budget and ramp our way back up. And so that's really important for me to be talking with our clients. So they understand that expectation is like, yep, demand gen, we're going to start seeing more budget go out again, but it's going to take a week to get back to where we were. And if you try and speed up this process, this is where Ross is talking about extending the recovering period and ruining your account stability. These are the actions of like not following a system is what creates bigger chops than you already have.
100%. So again, this section is for those of you driving in the media seat. It's important that you know what this feels like, but communicating with your team, communicating with your client, hey, this is what's going to happen, and this is what it feels like. So let's have a look at a hotspot. Pushing into the hotspot, what you're going to first see as a signal, you're going to see these rising costs. So underspend happens because costs have gone up. Your cost per optimized event starts pushing up, and all of a sudden, underspend happens. So if you're spending $100 a day, you're going to be spending $80, $60 a day. And again, let me show you what that looks like and kind of what the severity of what that looks like. So now I've got two examples here, and this is from two different spreadsheets that I use. The one on the left is a snapshot from an overview on Facebook, and you'll see what the difference is here. So this is a negative expense. So you'll see here we've got a minus 23% or a minus 33%. So that's based off, if there was 100% usage, that's that much less utilization. So you can see in these orange spots, we've got significant underspend for quite a period of time. Each row is a different day. If you look on the right-hand side, this is an example of a Google demand gen campaign. And this is a snapshot on a single day. So that's within 24 hours. The day before, everything was fine. We were spending 80, 90% of our budget. Overnight, all of a sudden, we went from 190% utilization. We've got one campaign that only used 36% of its budget. What this is an indication of is cost environment change. So this is serious hotspot. We've now pushed into it. And essentially, this is my first indicator. Raise a flag to a client and say, look, we're heading into some serious cost environment changes. I know the next bit of performance is going to be, or next couple of weeks is going to be tough. So let's quickly look at the do's and don'ts for a hotspot. We've got two. Remember, we've got the 9th of October. This is my bad. 9th of November and 20th of November. Didn't change the date on the slide there. But both of these, what we want to try and avoid here is wasted budget and, again, breaking stability. For all advertisers, whether you got cost controls in place or not, monitor your spend. Remember, first indicator is underspend. Communicate with your teams, communicate with your clients, because this is going to happen. This is not by accident, it's by design. Don't make budget changes, big budget changes through this time. You need to ride this out. Let the algorithm stabilize as much as it possibly can. Let the system learn. Those of you who have cost controls in place, bid cap, cost cap, target ROAS, all those things, racing those bids is a bad idea. You're now changing the goalpost, changing the target, asking ad network and learning to readjust, rehappen. All learning will reset. So you're just throwing away all the performance that you've already put in. And the last one, especially if you're using cost controls, is forgetting that only your strong ads are going to survive. If we go back, John, and just have a look at that example, there is one ad that's still spending okay. And there's an indication that we have one strong ad. It's going to carry on spending and hold true. But at the end of the day, there's a storm over here and the rest of them are underspending. So it's a really good indication there of what a strong ad will look like.
Yeah. And from my seat, working with the client, this is really important for me. If I start to see campaigns like with this one that's only spending 36%, this one's going to drop off entirely, right? And so it's important for me to look at this data with Ross to say, hey, all right, this budget is going away. And then if we keep heading into higher budgets, these three are at risk. So we really, if let's say we had $10,000, let's say it was evenly distributed as $2,000 for each one of these, we're going to lose $2,000 in the next couple days. And then if we continue to see higher, we have a chance of losing another 6,000. So it's really important to be able to see all of this information and communicate it to your clients or your internal team, being like, we don't have a lever we can pull. We're not going to be able to spend here. And so it's like this, don't forget that only strong ads are going to deliver is just crucial to understand. You can go relaunch them, but it's not going to change. It's not going to make things better. So it's really just being able to explain, this is what's likely to happen. You kind of have that big picture. We're going to see a 35% increase. And then during these windows is where we're going to have to see some things shake out to understand where we're ultimately going to end up. Cool. Thank you, Ross, for walking us through the hot spots and the cold spots. Let's talk through the seasonal changes now.
Perfect. So one thing we do is look over 12 months. We allocate, and we look at what are the big things that are happening every month. And these are macro things that affect all advertisers. So these are big events. We've got two big ones happening in November. We've got big big companies, big even campaigners pushing budget in on CPMs, buying up impressions where those impressions are not available to us performance advertisers. So we've got a couple for this month. The first one, and take into consideration, doesn't matter what you are advertising here, these will likely affect you. The first one is elections in the beginning of the month. That's around the 4th and 5th of the month. Then we have our normal end of month budget expectation where we've got big brand buys. But on top of that, we all know that this is Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So we're expecting some huge retail movement, especially if you're in the catalog sales space. You're going to see some significant cost implications. But obviously, if you've done all your planning, you'll be good. But those are the ones that we've highlighted for the month of November, John. Hopefully, everyone's prepared.
Yeah, and so when we talk about this is a forecast and not a prophecy, I think the thing that's really important for me is like normally this end of the month, the 24th through the 30th, like this is where we typically see these hotspots. Thanksgiving and Black Friday are later this year than usual. So Black Friday is on the 28th, which is why this is shifted back. This could be something that we see a little bit better costs a little longer. And then we get hit later than we're accustomed to with these things, which is why we have these plus or minus 2 days in all of the dates that Ross has given. It's just really important that you look at that stuff and understand, like, we're looking at historical trends, but sometimes when you have a later date, these windows change. And so that's where you're just going to have to be paying attention. We're on a big climb from the 10th on, but this may dip a little further into December than it normally does. And so it's just something to pay attention to there. Awesome, Ross. Thanks for walking us through all of that. All right. Projection models. Once again, I'm the numbers guy, so this is my job to explain with you really quickly how the projection models work. My goal is to view the CPM impact on results. I want to know what the cost environment changes mean for our overall P&L. A couple of things I have to consider when putting together projections is number one, the number of selling days. So November has one fewer selling days than October, so it's important that we factor that in when we're doing projections. And then number two is conversion rate changes. On a seasonal basis, if you have a history with your business, maybe November is a better month for you and maybe it's a worse month. It's important that you factor in those seasonal changes so you can understand what's really likely to happen. And the result of this is evergreen production. What can we expect our evergreen proven base of campaigns to produce? And this is really important whether you're looking at trying to match the production of last month or if your company has growth goals for you. Ultimately, what you're trying to say is like reasonably, this is what we can expect. And then what it helps us determine is the monthly focuses. So are we seeing a delta? Are we seeing a surplus? Are we seeing pretty predictable, steady results? And that's going to tell us what actions we can focus on and how risky they can be. So really quickly to explain why CPMs matter to you as a performance advertiser. If we're saying worst case scenario is that CPMs are going to go up 35% in the month of November. If we spend $100,000 in the month of October, for that same amount, we're going to reach 35% fewer people. And this is important for performance advertisers. I know you don't care about CPMs, you care about CPAs and ROAS, but this is why it matters. Your funnel does not begin at your landing page. It begins at the impression level. So when you're spending the same amount and reaching fewer people, your CTRs are probably going to be pretty similar. Your page load rates, your add to cart rates, your purchase rates. It's about the number of people that you're reaching, right? That's where this ultimately begins. And so when you reach fewer people, you're going to have worse ROI. And that's why this is so important to factor these things in. So the way I go through and I model this out is we look at November or our October production. Here's what we spent in the month of October, $100,000. Let's say it was $100 per sale, $150 in revenue, $150K in total revenue, and then a 1.5 ROAS. So the first thing I do is I say, if we maintain our spend and we just stomach the CPM changes, what's likely to happen? Well, our cost per sale is going to go up 35%, and our revenue is going to drop based off of that. So we're only going to see $111,000. So our ROAS is going to drop to a 1.11. And that's just if we spend the exact same amount of money, we're just seeing a massive retraction in our sales. If the client says, hey, we cannot afford a drop in volume, we're going to have to go push our ad spend. I call this peeing into the wind in a higher cost environment. So you can't just go increase your spend 35% because it's shrunk. Your reach at the existing spend has shrunk 35%. You're going to have to go spend more into higher cost periods. So to reach the same number of sales, you're probably going to have to spend $182,000, worst case scenario, to make that same number of sales, which is crazy. We're only talking about 35% more sales, but it's an 80% increase in spend because you're having to push into these higher CPMs. All of a sudden, that means your cost per sale is $182. So your ROAS is essentially cut in half during this period. Just really important you factor that in. And then finally, if the client says, hey, we cannot afford more than $100 per sale, we're going to have to retract our spend. And what's really important to understand with this is we're going to have to retreat a ton. This is a 46% reduction in spend to make up for these cost increases to try and maintain our cost per sale. And this is a best case scenario. The most we would be able to spend in this month and maintain that same cost per sale is probably about $55,000. And I would say it's likely going to be a lot less than that. Now, granted, this is saying that the conversion rate doesn't change, which hopefully for you it does. It improves in the month of November. But this is essentially how we go through and build these models, and we present our clients with these options. If we want to maintain our spend, maintain our volume, or maintain our cost, and then from this, we determine what the delta is that we have to make up. But there's definitely going to be a delta either in revenue or in profitability or both. And that's what's going to become so important. So the conclusions for me as I walk away from this projection exercise is our costs are going up, our results are going down, and frankly, they're going way down. We have a delta that we have to make up. So we have to focus on plays that will help us combat these higher costs so we can keep our production up. And that's where we come to the cost environment playbook. So every month, I want to try and give you three plays that you can run depending on your cost environment. Since this is a high cost environment, we're going to talk about low risk plays, things that you can do that are not going to go and put you at like you don't have a bunch of extra budget that you can waste here. So these are things that you can go through and leverage that are going to require some work. I've got a high lift play, a medium lift play, and a low lift play to try and help you combat these higher costs. But these are all things that are fairly low risk that you can go through and do to see how you can eat into that delta. So the first one, I like to do this using an example brand as a lens to look through. So I selected True Earth for this. Ryan McKenzie's the co-founder of it. It's a really great product. They're good at digital marketing and just thought it would be a good one to feature. And so I want to start with live shopping. I'm sure if you own a store, this is something that you've at least heard of if you have not already tried. It's making a massive difference for a ton of people. I recently saw someone did $2 million in sales in a single day. Now, obviously, they are committed to it. They're doing it all the time. I wouldn't expect that to happen overnight. But when we're talking about organic engagement, live reach, people that are interested, this is something that like a lot of people are on platforms, they're engaging with lives. And so having the ability to go through and do this and drive sales is a massive opportunity. If you haven't done this yet, you can think of it like today's version of an infomercial. And so the first thing that I would do if I was you is determine your platform. So which platform will your audience engage on most? And that's going to depend on who your users are. So if we're talking about Meta, is your user more on Facebook or on Instagram? There's people doing this on TikTok, people doing it on YouTube. Like there are a million different ways you can do this. And if you've got an integration like Shopify, setting it up is not all that complicated. But it's determining which platform would make the most sense. We always try and talk about the crocodile closest to the boat. Which one should we start on to validate if this works? Second thing is determining your lineup. You need to decide which SKUs you plan to promote. Sure, you could go through your entire product library. I would start with your best performers. What are the things that sell best with paid, with organic? Go through and try the same ones and see how this performs. And then what's been really interesting to me as I've watched some of these is determining your storyline. Just like any infomercial, there has to be a storyline around the problem and a bridge to how your product can solve it. So through the lens of True Earth, I would focus, their big thing is talking about reducing waste and plastics and those types of things. That's kind of their MO is being environmentally friendly. So that's something you can come on and start talking about that problem that people are likely to engage with because they don't feel like they're being sold right off the bat. And then you transition to the product. On the other hand, some people may just want to have products to shop for. And so if you've got something that's more product focused, that's not problem focused, start with it, see what happens, right? But it's determining that storyline and working through it. So it's a natural progression that people want to engage with what it is that you're doing. And this is a great way to go through and do that. And then finally, ensure your store is set up. So make sure your store is correctly integrated. So when you start the live, people are able to purchase. Those are just some technical issues. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes behind this, but it's something to me when we're talking about organic reach, not having to pay for things. This is an awesome opportunity to go through and try this and see if you can make up that delta. And I'm going to tell you, I cheated a little bit with this one. And the reason I selected True Earth, I know it, I'm familiar with it. I actually did an article on it a few years ago about the way they do their retargeting. But I was looking at live shopping, talking about how do I gather good information for the people that watch this podcast. I went on Shopify's site and I saw they had True Earth as one of their case studies. So they went through and they did this with a recent product launch. They saw a 20% increase in conversions, and it was a huge, driver of revenue. So it's already working for companies like this. People are going through and doing things. And once again, Shopify is nice because it has that setup that can integrate with everything. But this is a massive opportunity for you, and people are having success with it. It's just important to be on this trend, and I imagine it's going to be a big thing as we get into November and December for everyone in the shopping space. Play number 2 is supporting your proven partners and affiliates. And so what's really important here, there's 2 things I've done historically with affiliates that perform well. The first one is handing off top performing angles. So if you have a good relationship with a couple partners, I always say, hey, every month or 2, here's some of the angles that are performing best for us that we haven't shared with you yet. Some affiliates are just going to take your ads and run them. Those aren't great affiliates. Those are people that are just media buying. The really good affiliates are the ones that take good ideas and go and turn it into their own thing. And so if you have someone that likes to go through and make content or creative that you can send them something that's inspirational and they can work it through their process, that's who you want to work with this on. You don't need 2 versions of the same ad running on platforms. But if you can have them go through and they're creating UGC content or they're influencers or whatever that is, handing off angles that are proven so they can go through and put their own skin on it can be really successful. The second thing is seasonal payout bumps. I put careful here on purpose. When we're talking about heading into higher cost environments, the goal for you is, if you think about this with stocks, is to cost average. If you can make sales at a lower cost to help offset your higher costs, that's going to be a valuable thing. And affiliates are usually getting paid out less than what you as a brand are willing to stomach for your CPAs. So you typically have some additional margin. What I would really caution you to do is, instead of saying, hey, we want to increase your payout for Q4, you need to preface and say you may have to revert it back. We just want to give this a test. So I mocked up an email for you. As an example, if I were True Earth that was going to go through and send this to an affiliate, I'd say, we know people like to gift our laundry sheets in Q4, so we'd be open to doing a test to raise your payouts to get placed higher on your listicles, promoted more as you're working through things in in Q4. I can't promise these payouts will hang there. We need to see how the numbers back out, but I'm open to doing a test since you've been a great partner. This is something that for them says, hey, I already have a good relationship. I'm already making sales. Like, cool. If I can make more, I'll just continue to promote it more. In particular, if you've got someone that leverages listicles, you want to get as high up on the listicle as you can, because it's the ultimate Pareto principle. The top 2 listings do the vast majority of everything, all of the sales. And so getting up there makes a big difference. And then once again, you've prefaced this where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep you at this higher payout all year, but it may make sense now. And once again, you're cost averaging. If you've got a 35% increase with your ads and you're offering them a 10% with the payouts, it can make a big difference. The final thing for you to do is deploying proven angle iterations. So what Ross and I always try and focus on, we know ad platforms want new content. They want, as much as we love ads that are kind of set it and forget it, we don't have to touch them. Ad platforms hate those. They want new content to get engagement with users. And so what we try and do is always focus on inserting new creatives. But depending on our cost environment, it determines on, are we trying net new things, or do we want to have iterations of our proven angles? And in higher cost environments, we want iterations of proven angles because it maximizes our chances at success. So we developed an end-to-end workflow to go through and produce iterations at scale. I'm going to show it to you here in a second, but I think what's important for me is, I know you're running catalog sales. So what's important for you is looking at adding more creatives, images, videos, what have you, with your top SKUs. Obviously, you can go through and sort that out in your main product feed, or you can develop a supplemental feed. The goal is just continue to iterate, because new content gets preference from platforms. Make sure that you're inserting new things. And if it can be seasonally relevant, if it can be leveraging something like Marpipe that's helping you put together different things, insert videos, what have you, that's where you're really going to be successful. Just to show you really quickly how we do this, NAN is an automation and AI product. I've gone through and set this up that whenever we need new video iterations, I push a button, it executes a SQL query off of BigQuery, which gives us results based off the parameters I put in, and it spits out, these are the links to our Google video files. It downloads the files. I send them to ChatGPT to transcribe them. Then we put them through an agent with a prompt that says, we want you to follow the core of this message, but produce a brand new video script. And then it kicks it over to 11 Labs. We've preset the voice. We get back voiceovers. So now we have everything we need just to send to our editor to get these videos produced quickly, and Creative Strategy doesn't have to touch anything. This is a process we went through and set up to make sure that we're always having new stuff working through. It's allowed Creative Strategy to spend like 30% less time doing iterations. They can repurpose it to other things. And it's made a big difference. So to show you here really quickly with this process, Angle 20 is our parent angle. Year to date, it's spent about $2.5 million. In this period, it was about $300,000, but it started to burn out in August. Performance dropped significantly. So we started this process, and we wanted to confirm, like, is this going to put out crap, or are these going to be effective ads that still convert? And the nice thing is they've gone in line, as Ross likes to say, they're not AI slop. It's just repurposed angles that have already been proven to work. And as we've started to see this top angle come down in performance, these additional iterations have ramped up. Ross, what do you want to add from your perspective with the media buying side?
It's super important. If you're running catalog, you've got feed management, you would have all these things set up. Setting up a supplemental feed, running the stuff, you could probably set up with a bit of same exercise, same principle through N8N, get them to run through Nano Banana. You can really get some awesome stuff. If you're an e-commerce advertiser, you're going to have product shots on white backgrounds. Best thing, easiest thing to do. You could be churning out stuff, especially in the season of November. You could be making real exclusive content for Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Pretty easy thing to do to get real different creatives on your best SKUs. I think this is a great idea. It's super helpful from a media buying perspective, putting your tool belt, getting your team, your technical side to just plug this in, even if you just want to do a crazy small test on a couple of SKUs to see if it's going to get some uplift. But this iteration one, this is like gold nugget, easy to do, major uplift. We've seen some real uplift on our core parent angles. We've seen some of these AI iterations get up to $2,000-$3,000 a day. And that's just an iteration of a winning angle.
Sweet. Thanks, Ross. So those are the 3 ideas I have for you in the month of November to basically help you offset. You're going to have a delta from what you produce in the month of October. And so these are 3 things that you can do to go in and make up that delta. And once again, I think live shopping is a really interesting opportunity that it's not brand new. You may have missed the easy wave, but I think it's going to be really important this year. So supporting proven affiliates is always a great way to cost average your sales. And then deploying proven angle iterations. This is something that we're doing all the time, but it's going to be especially important in Q4. So I hope this helps you navigate the choppy waters of November. If you have any questions on anything, let us know down below. Otherwise, we will see you to prepare for the month of December. Thanks. Thanks for watching this month's paid traffic forecast. Just by watching it, you and your team now know what to expect from your overall performance and the hot spots and cold spots you need to pay attention to over the next 30 days. If you want to be this prepared every month, there's 2 things you can do. First, you can subscribe or follow our social channels so this information shows up in your feed at the beginning of every month. Second, if you want the information early, you can subscribe to our free list where you'll get the information delivered to your inbox a day ahead of time. If there's something you think we can do to improve our monthly update, just drop us a comment below and let us know what you think that is. And finally, if you're a business owner looking for someone who can help you develop an advertising ecosystem that produces more sustainable, predictable scale, make sure to head over to Decyphered.com/start. On that page, you'll understand how our process works and the steps you can take to see if we might be a good fit to help you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next month.